What's up? Adderall back in this piece. Putting a little bow on Clearview for now. But not to despair, because guess what's back? D&D. This here is the second chapter of The Land Chooses Its Hero. So if you ain't heard that, go back and listen to the other ones. Or don't, it don't really matter. I'll catch you up. Canydell, Ebo, and Arkin are seekers looking for some ancient god that doesn't make his presence known. Canydell was retired for like a whole bunch of years or something. Then they got the band back together. But now they were faced with like another problem because there was a war going on in their little area and they couldn't get out of there without like extreme scrutiny. So when we start this one back up, they're trying to do that. But first, introduce you to some new dudes. So the name of this story is The Land Chooses Its Heroes, chapter 2, part 5. This one is called All My Cards on the Table, and I'll see you later. Keene was not particularly a dark place. It was a land of beautiful gardens and caretakers of powerful and exotic creatures. It was a place that visitors from all over Galamark might bring their families to glimpse creatures that dwelt in dark places that only those bold enough to adventure may see. Though there was no dark without the light. Years ago, when Keene was cementing its reputation as a place to see wonders happen, another form of entertainment happened alongside it: gambling. There was only so long a man could marvel at beautiful landscapes and otherworldly beasts before he needed to satisfy his darker, baser needs. Along with the tourists came the trappers, pirates, and men that might tuck their children into bed for the night before seeking the comfort of vice. So Keene's gambling legacy was born. There were as many flop houses in the low end of Keene that offered high-stakes games of cards as there were legitimate state-sanctioned centers for debauchery. The Echo River was calm now, and it overlooked a hole-in-the-wall tavern right off the water's edge. The tavern was known for its gambling and disappearances of people that didn't pay up in equal measure. In the Echo's kiss was a healthy wealth of life and movement, followed by guarded merriment. There were two toughs at the door on obvious watch, a halfling that was as wide as a dwarf and nearly as muscular, plus a human that was well over 6 feet closer to 7. Games of chance were played on tables across the entire establishment, while unobtrusive sentries passed by watching for cheats and welchers, ready to deal with any type of undesirable before it became a bigger problem. At the center table of a high-stakes, high-tension card game, a woman with black hair and red edges took a careful exploratory glance at the cards dealt to her. All around the table were shady characters, all but one, a chipper gnome who stood in his chair rather than sat, who had the biggest smile on his face. He wore flamboyant, colorful clothes and a headband that made his hair erupt into a style that harkened to a volcano. Pisces wore leather armor, dyed black, fitted with more hidden pouches than one may easily discover without intrusive scrutiny. Her white sleeves flared out at the wrist but were currently rolled up at the moment to give the illusion of fair play. My cousin helped save the world last year. He was on a boat that was tip of the spear in dealing with the World Eater, said the gnome joyously while tapping the table once for a card. Your cousin's with Kip Cracklin, said a furry-faced bugbear. Why is that weird? You think gnomes don't have families? He put coins into the center pile. Sounds like you're attempting to distract us, said a human man with a lumpy face from old bruises and scars. If it distracts you, I think you should lose, he said with an unguarded laugh. The gnome was oblivious to the stern faces of men and women locked in battles of will and deception, wagering their lives away on the roll of a die or the unforgiving flip of a card. So, you guys in or what? I'm in. The woman with the rolled up sleeves pushed a stack of her coins in the center of the table. The gnome smiled, and though he absolutely was happy-go-lucky and absolutely was not putting on airs when it came to his carefree approach to life, he wasn't completely naive to the goings-on in the world. He saw the woman palm a card from the last shuffle, so betting against her was ill-advised. Sure, he could absolutely call her out and ask for a count of the deck and find extra cards in her possession. But he didn't want to do that because if he did, she could potentially be killed not only by the proprietors of the bar, but any of the cutthroats that sat at the table, and technically speaking, they would be within their right. He decided on a gentler touch. "You know, I'm not only a world-class bard, but I'm a captain," said the gnome. "You a captain?" the gruff bugbear said in honest disbelief as he pushed his money in. "It's true, I have a boat and everything, that I won in a game much like this. Well, not like this one, because honestly, you people don't have real money. No offense," the gnome went on. "Some taken, you sawed-off runt. Play the game and shut up, your voice is giving me headaches," said the bruised human male. "What's your story?" he said to the woman who was cheating. He waited for her to be looking at him directly and spoke in the language on top of language that those that did dirt dealt in. With a subtle twist of his fingers, he conveyed the silent message to stop. The woman's eyes squinted, and the gnome realized she had certainly got the message. "If you don't like my voice, perhaps I can sing for you. Would that please you?" said the gnome to the table. "I don't know why you think that," the human man started to say. The female cheat stepped in and said in a deep, sultry voice, "No, I'd like to hear his song. He talked quite a good game. Let's see if he can back it up." The gnome didn't wait for the rest of the table to agree or disagree. He merely snapped his fingers, and a minotaur, who was off to the side, nearly invisible in the crowd, threw the gnome a lute. He dramatically stood on the table, nimble enough not to rustle one coin, then caught the twirling instrument. "Today is the day we all find out who we are. Best the best become a star," said the gnome, who strummed his lute expertly and calibrated his beautiful tenor voice to harmonize with the tune. Inside the words of the song, he placed a hidden message to the woman, which said, "I saw you take what wasn't yours. Fold, or I'll be forced to say so." The woman smiled as if enjoying the song, but she was in deep contemplation as to what her next move was. In reality, not the game. The other players in the card game have got into the music, and since he hadn't won the pot just yet, they weren't beyond jubilant. The gnome watched the woman slowly slide in closer to him. He could see her silently attempt to slip a card into his pile. He allowed it for now because he wanted to see where this all went. Arkin, Canydell, Ebo, and Alune entered the echo's kiss to the sounds of music and merriment. There was a flamboyant gnome dancing on a table with a lute, doing a decent job of holding the gathered assembly of men of dubious morals attentions. "This is the best place to secure a smuggler," Alune said. She being a non-conventionally beautiful half-elf in green and brown traveling clothes, with shaved hair on one side of her head and none on the other. "Are you sure we couldn't just travel overland over dealing with," Canydell said, but Arkin cut in, "with low lives?" "I wasn't going to put it in that way, but yes." "Eject a bit of chaos into your lives, my friends. Not knowing what is going to happen is what makes it fun," said Ebo, the dwarf with a beard shaved on the sides and a bald head. He was a priest to the nameless god and worshipped the power of making itself. There was no structure to his belief system, and it was barely a religion, but in truth, all that worshipped the faceless god did so in a way that most fit their own personal beliefs, not the edicts of a church. When Ebo called to the nameless god in his youth at a time of dire need, he answered him. He didn't know what he wanted to happen when he was attacked by gnolls. He just prayed for anything to happen, and anything was what happened. His conviction bolstered his power, and through the years, Ebo learned a measure of control of the mystical energies the faceless gave him. He was, in no uncertain terms, not the master of it. He wished for anything, and anything happened. So, through the years, he learned to embrace the chaos, and found that chaos was what made life interesting, not well thought out structure. Control of your environment was an illusion at worst, and fleeting at best, so he learned to nudge reality just enough to aid him, not master it, because it was in fact an impossible endeavor. Arkin sparked his cigarette and pulled his black duster in closer. He was of the breed, the dog folk of Everin, but a seeker. Though he got no powers from the nameless, faceless god, he possessed the curiosity, the sometimes ruinous curiosity to find the god that had no name and no face. He dedicated himself to a life of endless adventure in search of answers to a question that may not have even had answers to begin with. Canydell was a strong human with the massive arms of a blacksmith, because he was, or at least he had been, for approximately 5 years or so. He gave up a life of adventure for the quiet simplicity of a mundane existence, falling back into the trade he knew from his family's lineage. He was not one to frequent taverns, and by no means found looking for danger enjoyable, but when Arkin asked him to take to the road because of the seismic shifts in temperatures, he reluctantly agreed. He had his reasons for leaving the road behind, but he couldn't say that he didn't enjoy it. Canydell didn't quite realize how much of a void not seeing the hidden places made in his heart until it was brought to him. So, do you actually know someone who can get us through the blockade, or was finding this place as good as it gets from you? Arkin asked Alune the half-elf. I do know a few people, if they're amongst us here and now. That is the question, Alune responded. Well, go do your thing then. Don't let me hold you up, Arkin said. The mysterious dogfolk shooed her away as if to get her on task. For a moment, Alune just stood there as if she didn't want to do what he asked, just because he was being so pompous about it. The half-elf woman disappeared into the crowd. I know she may be new to adventuring, but there is no need to be difficult, said Ebo to Arkin. The road's harsh, and if she can't handle a few words, what makes you think she's cut out to be an adventurer? Ebo stroked his beard for half a moment in thought. That logic is sound, but when she gets tired of you being difficult and puts an arrow in you, I may not heal you. You'll heal me, Arkin said with a smile. Ebo knew he would. It wasn't in his nature to prove points. Hubris and pride was not something he was comfortable with. Even without a religious framework, he managed to learn those traits. The three watched the half-elf work the room. Arkin raised his hand to get drinks for the table. The big-bosom barmaid put 3 L's down, but Canydell pushed his flagon away. What's wrong with you? It's not that early, Arkin said. I don't drink anymore, Canydell replied. Why? Queried the curious black Labrador-faced dogfolk. I used to drink because it was fun. It's not fun to me anymore, he admitted. I understand. You associated liquor with good times, and after it all happened, that memory was replaced with bad times, said Ebo while chugging his drink vigorously. His friend's mood and moral objection having no actual effect on his need to get tipsy. You can't get over that? Arkin said with half concern and half annoyance. Canydell's face flashed with anger. Did you just tell me I should get over it? He said while standing to post up. We all did, why not you? Arkin said. Oh, I never got over it myself, Arkin. I just deal with it in different ways, said Ebo.
You obviously dealt with it by not dealing with it.
Whatever works, Arkin spoke with a dour note.
Whatever works,
said Ebo, raising his mug and taking a huge gulp.
Sit down, Canydell. Nobody's gonna fight you here. You know there was a time you used to be fun, as hard as that is to believe.
A fight broke out. The 3 ex-adventurers' eyes rolled into the crowd to pinpoint the source of the unease. The gnome with the flamboyant headband was either dancing on the table or doing a tactical spin. Neither of the 3 could work it out. His legs spun and rotated like the rudders of a boat as a battle-hardened bugbear did his best to jab a knife down into him. The gnome's rhythmic spin sent coins spraying every which way, but his attacker was having a very difficult time getting a clean shot. A woman in leather with black hair and red tips pushed the table over in a powerful deadlift. A man who bore the scars of 100 battles reached into the pouch on his waist and intricately waggled his fingers in the language of the arcane. Canydell noticed that Lune was in very close proximity to the dark-haired woman, so close in fact perhaps she had just been conversing with her. A gout of fire roared at the two and an unlucky man who happened to be moving to his table. The flames erupted from the caster's mouth like a dragon, bathing all those in his wake with fire. And Lune rolled under the table, and the other woman who was in the game took that blink of an eye to position herself behind the man that was unfortunate enough to be in the blast zone. He received all the flames, and she went largely unscathed. The gnome rolled forward when his table was flipped over. Then he said a quick word of magic, and he disappeared from sight. Ebo swept his hand forth dramatically and created an act of nature from the strength of his will and a prayer to the nameless. The air clotted together in an instant. It swirled into a miniature tornado that picked up anything loose or small and tossed it about. In a blink, the aggressive wizard was enveloped by the man-sized whirlwind, taken off his feet, and whisked away towards the back of the bar. Arkin didn't bother to put out his smoke when he reached to his sides and pulled twin pistols. Canydell grabbed the dog folk's hand. It's a bar fight, my friend, that could cause more damage than it fixes. Arkin nodded as if he valued his friend's judgment. Lune dashed over to their table, staying low, as if not to draw the ire of those that may be looking for someone to fight. The woman in the black leather with the red edges rolled in front of them as well.
You were looking for someone to get you past the blockade, Pisces said between breaths, even though she had the bulk of their table attempting to enact vengeance of some sort. The furry bugbear that attempted to grab the gnome was grabbed himself by the likes of a minotaur 7 feet in height, lanky for his kind, but no less strong than his kin. The bullhorn monstrosity flung the bugbear. The other players at the table, who were slower on the draw, ran towards Pisces. Canydell manifested an echo directly behind one of the 2 angry humans. His mirage tapped one on the shoulder from behind. When the human turned around, he threw a punch indiscriminately. The blow struck and met with only a slight resistance, like someone fighting against the power of a windstorm. When he turned back to Pisces, Canydell punched him in the face, dropping him to the ground. The other human fired off a punch on the blacksmith. Canydell caught his hand, intercepting force with force, then pushed him down to the floor. He shook his head in the negative to the angry bar patron who had feelings to work out between himself and Pisces. But they would have to go unresolved now that a greater force barred his passage. Arkin got up while the chaos unfolded all around him as if it were any other day of the week. In some regards, a brawl without the high stakes of certain death was refreshing. He gave a sharp whistle to Lune, who was looking for her moment to make her move. She dashed for the door. "Come on," Arkin said to the rest of his crew before this moved out of the realm of a mildly innocent bar fight with light stabbing to something dire and tragic.
Look for part 6 of The Land Chooses Its Heroes. Do all that liking and subscribing, or don't. I don't give a shit. And we out of here like last year.